agencies was like, Mirte, we don't want you to lose Prada. So just eat an apple a day. It was a lot of luck. Like my first show, I opened Alexander Wang. In some way, I'm like very happy that I modeled back when we modeled, because it's like you go to your job, you go home, that's it. And now it's like with social media, you know, to be a successful model, majority of times you have to like show yourself to like the world. I feel like with modeling, you're also like, maybe this is the last money I'll ever make. I came up with the idea of the pregnancy app.
You're definitely Dutch at heart.
I am Dutch at heart. Yeah.
Mirte Maas, I'm so happy to welcome you here at the Extra Stitch podcast. I'm glad we could do this because I know you're here in LA for a very short time. So welcome.
Thank you.
So Mirte is Dutch model, currently living in New York. You finished Columbia University. You dipped your toes into business world, I would say, real estate, and you have your app called Lil Bean. So welcome.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Good, very good. Yeah, it's nice to be here.
How's LA so far?
It's nice. Yeah, it's a little cold.
Yeah,
like raining. No, I like it. I'm not used to driving, so I feel like it's always like a new like.
Do you feel each time you have to, you kind of start from beginning?
Kind of. I'm getting better. I feel like 2-3 years ago, I used to just like Google, like, where's the gas? Where's the stuff? Because I would drive like 1 year and I kind of would forget like where's what.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, I'm not that great. Like yesterday I noticed like the mirrors were like this. I pressed some button.
Oh my God.
I didn't notice it. And Alex was like, I was like, I think the mirrors are off. And I was like, oh, that's why I couldn't see anything on that side for the last. So no, my driving is not the best.
Well, if you spend more time here, then
you probably have to. In New York, you just don't. You know, you just take subway or
walk.
I bike everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I like being in LA. I think it's nice. I don't think I would move here.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like kind of a New Yorker now, but yeah.
New York is great. I mean, New York is always my favorite city in the world.
Still?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's just different times, you know. I feel like New York was amazing for my 20s. It's the best city.
Yeah.
It offers you so much. And it's interesting how my life turned out and like how I ended up in LA.
Yeah.
And I love it now. I think it's great for kids. It's great for family. Work-wise is a bit different in fashion, you know. It's still coming up, but you know, LA is way different than New York. So, but it's a great place to be. But about you, Mirte. So you're Dutch.
Yeah.
You grew up in the Netherlands. Tell us more about your upbringing. I know you come from a big family. You're the third child, the youngest one.
Yeah.
How was it for you?
I thought it was, as you know, growing up in Holland, it's quite nice, like stress-free. You know, I grew up in the suburbs, and the town I was born in wasn't where I was raised, Helmond, but I grew up in Breda. It's in the south of Holland, like smaller city, but maybe 300,000 people. So it's like a city, but then in the suburbs. So like it was definitely like suburbs living, but you still, you know, the nice thing in Holland is like you're kind of free at a young age because like you bike everywhere. So even at like, and back then like the drinking age was like 16. So like at 14, 15, you're like biking to the bars. Like it's a very, like you're not attached to your parents, like having to bring you everywhere. Like you can go over to your friend's house. So it's like, I feel like it's a very safe upbringing. And, you know, school's free, like health, like it's a good country to grow up. Like
It sounds like a perfect setup.
it's nice. Yeah. I feel like I had a really nice upbringing, but now also like after being in the US for like 15 years in New York, I can't really see myself moving back.
You don't?
I don't. No.
Yeah.
I think New York's such a like fast paced and like also American mentality, you know, there's a little bit of like the fake nice side, but I think it's also kind of nice in a way, where it's like, you know, if you go to Holland, people are very direct and honest and a little bit rude maybe. And I can still be that way too. So I feel like, you know, after a few years when I started going back to Holland, I'm like, oh, it is, you change, you know. I think, you know, I've been here from 18 till I'm 33 now. So like 15 years, like that's like, you know, almost half your life.
It's kind of like me. Almost
Yeah,
the same.
yeah. So like, you know, like I'm sure you can't see yourself going back to Latvia. Like it's nice to visit, but like moving back there, you know, there's aspects that are like nice. I feel like childhood is really nice there. But for me as an adult, I think, you know, New York, you have everything, right? There's like so many opportunities for work, and that, yeah, I don't really see myself moving back.
I guess you're like really like a city girl, because
Now, yeah.
even your city where you grew up, 300,000 people, I think it's.
But I
it's
grew up in
quite
a village next to it, like 30-minute bike ride from the city. So like, and even then I noticed there's like kids that grow up in the city and kids in the suburbs. They're a little different. So I definitely grew up more in the suburbs, but it's not like farmlands, you know, it's populated areas. Like Holland is tiny. So it's like, it feels like it's like farmlands and spread out, but like it's a tiny country with 60 million people. So it's pretty, it's pretty dense. And like we lived maybe an hour and a half drive from Amsterdam, but that's like, we would never go there. There's like other cities you would go to. So like Amsterdam, like now I go there maybe when I go visit Holland, but like it's not where I'm from. So even if people ask me like, oh, what should I go do in Amsterdam? I'm like, I don't know.
They're like, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not the best tour guide. But no, I feel like I've always had good memories from Holland, but I've never had an issue. Like I never felt homesick. I feel like the first moment I moved to New York really quick. Like I finished high school, came to New York, you know, tried for Fashion Week, went well, and then I just stayed. Like,
so what was that breakthrough for you? When, not the breakthrough, but how did you start it? How did you get scouted? Did you want to be a model, or they approach you?
So I got approached in Holland when I was like 14. And I was kind of surprised because like at that age, like I was definitely not like the typical like popular pretty girl in high school. Like I was a bit bigger too. I was probably like 20 pounds more than when I was 18 and really started modeling. But this scout, Anna Reed, she found me, and they were nice. They were like, okay, you know, wait till you're out of high school and then you can start, you know, then we'll go to New York to try, you know, get an agency there. So like, I think in those years that I was in high school, like I met, at the time, it was like Women Milan. I went to Milan to meet Women Milan. And then they were like, okay, you can go in August before Fashion Week to New York, meet with, you know, the agency there, and they'll see if they want you or not. And then you'll try Fashion Week. So like, for me, it happened very fast, where it was like, I came to New York in August. Like I graduated high school, came to New York in August. And the agencies were like, okay, yes, we want you. We'll propose you to the shows. And that was it. It was like very easy. Like, I think I was like, it was a lot of luck. Like my first show, I opened Alexander Wang, and it was like, and back then, like Alexander Wang was like the
huge.
Coolest show. Yeah. I think now it's probably,
Yeah, with all the drama.
Back then. now I think he's canceled a little bit, but But back then, this was like 2009, and it was like the coolest show. And like, I've never heard of this brand. And I remember like my first show, they wanted me to open a show, and it was like me, and then it was Natasha Polly, and I had no clue who she was. And it was very much like, oh, this sounds cool, like to do a show. And like that just like got the ball rolling, because I feel like in fashion, especially back then, it was like if you did this show and this show, you start there, you do all the like, it's very like followers, right? I'm sure I don't know how it was for you when you like you had your one big break, and then everyone all of a sudden is like, oh, now she's cool. So like,
yeah, it's like a snowball starts
it's
rolling.
like a snowball, yeah. So for me, that happened really fast. So like once I did shows, then you got the campaigns. Then so I moved to New York very quick, because back then it was like New York was the place to be for like, and I liked it there. So I was like, I feel like I never really loved Paris. And back then, kind of like the money was in the US. So it was like, okay, you live in New York, and then they would fly you everywhere.
Yeah.
So I've had a good experience. Like, I feel like modeling, like, it just came kind of easy.
I didn't realize it was so quick.
So
for you.
quick, yeah.
Literally, you just fresh off the boat.
Yeah.
You sign with agency. You
Yeah.
go for a casting. They're like, Carl Templer's like, okay, she's the girl.
Yeah.
She's gonna
open Alexander Wang.
And Natasha's behind you.
Yeah.
And that's like, wow, major. And
Yeah.
like, when did you realize it was so major?
And I remember like the CEO at the time, he was like, Mirte, you're gonna get a lot of debt when you come here, but like you'll make it back in like 1 or 2 jobs. Like, don't worry. And like, I think sometimes it works that way, and sometimes girls never pay back, and like, you know, it's either a hit or miss. But in my case, like, it went quick. You know, it's like, okay, you open the shows, and then I think I started realizing like, okay, this is like gonna be like a career is once I got the campaign. So like back then it was like you do shows, and then I think my first season I did like Balenciaga and CK campaign. So it was kind of like known that like if you do the shows and you get the campaigns, then you're at least good to next season. Like you'll get the catalogs. So I think that's kind of when I realized like, oh, this can actually like be like I can make money with this versus like, okay, I'm just gonna try for a year, and if it doesn't go well, I'll go back to school. Because I think that was kind of my idea, where it's like I'll give it 1 year. I think my mom will only allow me to take 1 year off, and go explore.
That was my story too. Same thing.
1 year, and then you know that turns into 2. You know,
Just like, out of curiosity, how long it took for you to start making money?
I think it was fast, actually.
Fast, yeah.
I mean, I feel like like within those first few months, like first month, I like paid it.
Well, that's great because you
Yeah.
did Vang and then like automatically just like start.
Yeah, like not that the show's paid, you know, back then,
Yeah.
especially in New York, I think they didn't have to. I got a lot of clothes that I still have.
Yeah, that we were talking about.
Yeah, like a lot of trades. I think now they have to pay you something at least.
Do you have any of favorite trades from those times that you keep and you're like, I'll keep this forever, even though maybe you don't wear it?
I feel like some like Balenciaga stuff, like
Yeah.
the Balenciaga bag, but even that, like at some point I was like, you know, like it's also with these things where it's trade, it's like they don't give you like the nicest things always, you know, it's like the funky colors. I feel like I still kind of wear some of the Wang, but like honestly, like I've probably worn most of the things to death, and it like kind of goes out of style, some of it too. So like I don't know if there's like one piece that I'm still like, oh, I still wear
Attached to.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like back then it was always like I would, after Fashion Week, go home to Holland, spend a week with my family. And I remember my mom was always like, okay, what do you have for me? And I would just be like, okay, I guess I'm not going to wear this slim bag. So here you go. And she's like, I'm like, my mom, it's a very nice bag. She's like, yeah, I use it for my groceries. And I'm like, yeah, it's a very nice bag. Like,
Yeah.
So they would also go through it. And I think back then, like, you also think like, oh, this is just going to keep coming, you know, like these trades. And like, I think you don't realize that like once you stop doing shows, that kind of ends. Like you'll still get sent stuff, but it's like not.
It's a bit different. Yeah.
It's a bit different, like all the cool brands. And there was just a few, right? There was like always, we would know like these are shows you get close. These are the shows that pay. And so it was just like a few brands that would always send you stuff. I have this one, so I do have this one Balenciaga jacket that it's a little small on me now, but I feel like I would keep it forever because it's kind of like a good memory. And then I would say my favorite is actually Chanel bag. Did you ever get a Chanel bag?
No.
No, because they never used to give it. I
think some girls got. You worked so much with Carl. He loved you. So like,
I got once like a wallet when I did like a campaign, but the bag I actually got because I cried in the show. Yeah.
okay, tell the story. We need to know the tea. Why did you cry at the show?
Because I felt so bad. So it was like one of their couture shows, and like my dress was super tight around my ankles. And it was like, remember they had like the Grand Palais where you have to walk like very far. And I was like one of the last girls, like I think the second to last. And the girl that was supposed to close, of course, she wanted to close. So you know, she was going slow too until she got a picture.
Yeah.
And then just speed up to me. So like, I was probably on the runway for like a few minutes just by myself, like.
So she went past you after she took her picture.
Yeah, took her picture, which is like, I get it. I mean, you kind of want to close. That's a big deal to close the show. But then it was just like, I was just like really, I was trying to go as fast as I want, but like the dress was so tight around my ankles that I was just like this. And I just like, I'm just by myself on this like Grand Palais, and like the finale is already coming and I'm still on the runway. And like the girls at Chanel, they're so nice, but they were like, Mirte, don't go in the finale, you're too slow. And I just start crying because I felt so bad. I was like, oh, you did such, and I feel like I see this more with girls when you like fall. So like, you just feel bad because you're like, oh, I did such a bad job. And they're like, it's not you, it's a dress. And then the next time we did like this trip, I think it was like in Dallas, some kind of pre-fall. You know, they used to do these cruise or pre-fall shows, like really fun trips. Like I love those Chanel trips. And at the fitting, they were like, "Hey, Mirte, here's a present because we feel so bad for you that like for your dress last time." I was like,
really?
Yeah, they gave me a Chanel bag.
Which one did they give you?
They gave me a nice blue Chanel bag, like the classic,
like turquoise or dark?
No, like dark blue.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's so nice.
I know. I was like,
oh my God.
I know.
Then you're like, oh, this was all worth it.
Right? Because I honestly, like, you feel really bad. I'm like, oh, like, you know.
Of course.
And they were so nice with them. That's the only time I got a really nice, like, Chanel bag. So I feel like that's...
And now it's worth so much.
I think so. It keeps going up.
Like, the price has gone so much up.
But that's one of the trays I wouldn't sell, I think. Because it has, like, a nice memory.
It has, like, a good story behind, you know? Something you can... you'll always remember.
Yeah.
Do you have any other stories? Like, any other wild stories?
Stories?
That you can remember?
Like modeling days?
Yeah.
Like happy or sad?
What?
Happy or sad? I mean,
happy or sad? Any? I don't know.
Like a funny one?
I'm sure you have some good ones.
Yeah, I do have a story that's kind of funny. No, so my first show season, it was like my big season, right? So it's like, okay, I did all the shows in New York, and then you go to Milan, and one of the owners of the agency of one of my agencies was like, Mirte, we don't want you to lose Prada, so just eat an apple a day. And because, you know, you need to get the Prada show. And I was like, okay. And not that I just ate an apple a day, but I was like careful. And back then, like, I just tend to like, I was definitely a bit skinnier than I am now. And like, I had low blood pressure. So I just had a tendency to like sometimes faint. So it was probably like 2-3 days where like, I didn't eat much. Back then it was like Prada. They would like have you in this. Have you done Prada or like the castings? Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
They make you wait for a long time.
They make you wait for a long time. Yeah. So it was like one of these like final castings where it's like, this is like 2009, and like they would have every girl, like 5 girls at the same time, like go into the room in front of Mucha and the casting director at the time. And they wanted to see her legs. So if you weren't wearing a skirt or a dress, you would basically wear like walking your G-string in heels. And we were waiting there for like hours, you know. So I think I was like starting to feel it. I was like standing on these heels in front of them, and like 5 girls at the same time, you know, one by one you had to walk. And I'm like, oh no, I can start feeling it. I'm like not seeing anything. I'm like, I gotta get this show. So I'm walking. And then before I know it, I like wake up from a nice dream, and I'm like, oh no. I like fainted in front of like the designer. And they're like, girl, you should eat. And I'm like, oh no.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
Still booked the show though.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And ever since, because I feel like, you know, with like models, like I feel like there's such a stigma about like, you know, of course, sometimes we get told like, okay, you gotta like be fit for a show or things like that. Ever since then, my agency never told me anything anymore. And like, and I think it's also like, because I feel like, you know, some girls like, I don't think I was ever like, I think you either get affected by like, okay, you gotta be, and it gets into your head, and like girls get like, you know, they get unhealthy skinny. I think I was prone to that. Like I could have leaned that way, but I don't think I was. But in the same way, I think that, because I think back then too, like there was kind of an, you know, a certain shape that you had to be to do shows. So like in a way they were not looking out for you, but it's like, okay, if you want to get the show, this is kind of how you're supposed to be. But then also, like, I think I've also had a nice experience where it's like when I told the story to my agency in New York, they were like, oh, we're so sorry. Like, you went, like, that they told you that. Like, you know, like, they were pretty nice about it, which I don't think is for every girl. Like, you know, there's also agencies that are, like, mean about it. So, like, I've never had a bad experience. Like, I look back at the moment and I'm like, it's kind of funny, but like it's also like,
but then that just proves as well how mature you were, how you like dealt with the situation, you know?
Yeah, a little bit.
Because I know there are a lot of girls who would like give up. They would be like, okay, this is not for me.
Yeah,
I know a lot of those because for model apartments. Did you ever spend times in model apartments?
I did. I think that's where we originally met, actually.
In model apartment?
Well, like, we didn't stay the same model apartment, but I remember the Union Square model apartment?
Yeah, on the 16th Street.
Yeah, I think you used to visit it sometimes when I was living there, because that was the first apartment I stayed in, and I remember you coming to visit, and you kind of graduated already because you had your own place.
Oh,
yeah,
oh, snap!
Yeah.
So it's like a year ahead of you.
I was like, yeah, because I think you were a year ahead, or like, because a model apartment is kind of like you stay there for a year, maybe two. You know, until you make your own money. Yeah.
Who was I visiting? I remember.
I think Victoria.
So she was still staying there.
She was staying there, yeah.
And Tony was there, like Tony, Victoria, kind of all.
I used to live with Lais too, who's like, did not speak any English back then. She was like the sweetest girl, but just like, it was like sign language.
Just like,
yeah.
Central model apartment.
Yeah.
So that was your first place you stayed?
Yeah, which is not a bad place.
It's great.
Yeah.
Location's amazing.
Yeah, like compared to some other model apartments where it's like 6 bunk beds in a room.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
What, the one on Hudson Street?
Or like, what was it? Like in...
Houston Street.
Oh yeah, the one, like I've seen that one.
I'm not gonna say agency's name,
but I know.
I remember visiting girls there, and it's like you walk in a room and it looks like a train station, like a train pilot, like because all the bunk beds. It was crazy.
Yeah. So I feel like my modeling, like I've been very lucky. I feel like I've always been with like a nice agency, and you know I was very fortunate to like do well from the beginning. And I don't think I was like pressured enough where it's like, I always knew like, okay, if it doesn't work out, I just move back to Holland, go to school, and I'll be, you know, I think there wasn't this much pressure of like, because I think a lot of girls, like when you come from less fortunate backgrounds, you have a family to take care of. I think it can get harsher, you know, like I think, you know, I've always kind of, I think I feel pretty lucky.
How did your family look at you when you started succeeding, and like, were you like, well, 1 year is rolling into the second year and like, maybe I'll stay longer?
I think my mom was really like, I do think she was proud, but she would never say, like, I think that's just like, you know, every parent has their own thing. But like, she wouldn't say she was proud, but then my dad was like, she looks at all your pictures. And I definitely think she was proud, but every year she would be like, but when are you going back to school? So I feel like that was always kind of nagging on me, that I'm like, okay, like, you know, it is work, but this school thing is so important. Like my mom's a teacher, and like everyone in Holland goes to school. Like I don't think my parents would ever let me do the whole modeling thing if I wasn't like the third one in the family, where it's like my brother and my sister, they went to college, so they're like, okay, the third one, she can like,
we can be more flexible.
Like, okay, you try for a year and then, you know, and then you move back. And I think it was also hard for them that like, you know, once I was 18, I moved to New York, like I never really came back. Like, I mean, I come visit them like 3 times a year, but it was pretty, there was never a point that I was like, oh, I'm going to move back to Holland. So I think that's like the unfortunate part for my family. I think they were proud, but they were also like always still like, my mom was always like, but when are you going to go back to school? Yeah.
So was that decision that you made to go in university?
I think it was a large part. Yeah. I feel like there was, I knew at some point I would want to go to school, but I think you can go to school at any age. Like I think I started going when I was like 22, 23, like slowly I would do like part-time and still work on the side. Which I think was good, because like I think it was a good balance because like even with work, like except for the first 3 years where I was always traveling, I had a lot of time. Like it was like with our agency, they were pretty particular. So it was like maybe I would work once a week, twice a week, but it wasn't like every day, like nonstop. So at the time, but I feel like I could have taken my time. I feel like I had this idea of like, okay, I want to graduate before 30 and like then get a normal job. And then I think I struggled with that a little bit during school where I was like, okay, now I need to figure out my next career. And Colombia is definitely like a quite competitive environment. Like I feel like in Holland, people are quite honest. Like it's like, if you don't get something, you're just like, I don't get it, you know? But there it's very much like, when kids go to like a school like that or get into school, like their whole life, they've been like the best of their class. So like if you're in a class and you don't get something, people are not inclined to be like, oh, I don't get it. It's like, so it's a bit like, I think the environment itself doesn't allow for like, I don't know, self-expression. So like I always felt a little bit like, do I deserve to be like, am I smart enough to be here? Which also maybe comes a little bit from the modeling, a little bit from my upbringing. And everyone's focused on like, okay, we want to go into consulting or in finance. And I feel like I figured out more what I don't want to do than what I do want to do in school. Because I don't think it really helped you with that, like figuring out like a career.
Really? So what degree did you get? Like,
I did economics, but it's like a liberal arts school. So like I would say it didn't prepare me to like do my own finances for real estate or all of that. It's like you learn more of like a theoretical way of thinking on like old macroeconomic theory and like. It's more like to get your brain to work in a certain way than like actual practical skills. Like kids that study economics at Columbia and they go into finance, they have to learn everything on their own. It's not like school teaches you that. Like I think there's schools that do that, but not really these type of schools.
Yeah. And what's your take after your graduation? What did you realize? What did you learn? What was like... Do you realize anything? What's like your next steps in life? Or
I feel like I graduated like midst of COVID. Like I graduated in May 2020. And like the whole world was on pause. Like I graduated on like Zoom.
I know that post you did. I'm gonna show in a video too.
Oh
where you're jumping up in the air and there's like nobody on the street.
Yeah, I had a very sad graduation.
Oh no! And with the champagne bottle at home.
And like yay! And like I remember also the school was like didn't do such a good job. I remember like I told my parents like, oh, they're gonna do like a Zoom graduation, and it was just like. At a certain time, they uploaded a YouTube video of someone speaking. And like, I think my mom didn't really understand that it's just a YouTube video you can watch. She's like, no, but they're speaking. I'm like, yeah, it's just a video. But I feel like maybe it was like a good time. Because like, not a good time, but like, I feel like it kind of took a little bit of the pressure off of like, okay, going into a full-time job. Like I still really didn't really figure out like, what I wanted to do. And then COVID kind of slowed it down where it's like we traveled a lot and like I think it kind of gave me some like time to breathe to like figure out what I wanted to do.
You didn't feel that pressure that like, okay, what's my next?
And like I was doing a little bit like I was already like I was looking into like my next like real estate purchase. But it was kind of like, I feel like when I got pregnant, which was a few months after that, because I was always like, it's COVID. I've been together with the same person for like 10 years. I'm like, I want to have a baby. I kind of had in my head that I want to have a kid around 30. So I got pregnant pretty soon after I graduated. And I feel like kind of like when I was pregnant, I had more of these ideas where I was like, okay, I came up with the idea of the pregnancy app. Just out of my own, like, I think I was a bit like crazy my first pregnancy. Not crazy, but like I started reading all these like, okay, like shouldn't drink water from a plastic bottle, like all these like things that like normally I don't really care that much about. Like I'm definitely not like that green, if you may say, or I don't know how you call it, but like I like to drink. I'm not like the most health conscious person.
Yeah.
But then when I was pregnant, I was like, oh, there's like, this is like the chance for me to like, at least like do my best. So like he can make his own mistakes and like have fun later on. So I got like kind of like obsessed on like researching everything. Like, okay, I knew kind of skincare was something that like you have to be careful of. And it was just a hard time figuring out because like you have, you know, product with like, you know, 50 ingredients on it. And then there's like a bunch of ingredients that you like might want to be careful of. So I was like, I'm sure there's like an app for that to like check. And there wasn't. So then I decided to develop that. So I feel like it wasn't until like after I graduated and like I was pregnant that I had this idea. I was also pregnant when I bought my second Airbnb investment. So yeah, and I'm not sure why. Like why it came then, because I feel like during college it was good to figure out what I don't want to do. Like I did like an internship in like private equity and I was like, I do not want to sit in an office like 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Like if I don't have to.
Yeah.
Like if I really like have to make money and work and like, but it doesn't seem exciting.
So it sounds like more like pregnancy was the one that kind of opened up more things.
Yeah. And I think I was a bit more willing to take risk where it was like, okay, I think it's okay to invest some money in like developing an idea that like that. And like worst case, some women will find some use out of it. But I didn't really think of it as like a business idea. Like I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to try to make money with it. And then like, I guess I realized like a few months after, and I redeveloped it a few times. So it's like, now it's in a good place. That I was like, oh, it's actually getting downloaded like pretty organically. So it's actually like now, like between, you know, modeling and real estate and pregnancy app, it's like income is kind of equal where it's like, you know, it all adds up. So I feel like I went from like in college being like, okay, I need to find my one next job, to like, okay, maybe I can have like 3 jobs and plus taking care of Caden, which I do love spending time with him. So I think it's like, it's nice to be flexible.
A good balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
What advice would you have for any starting girl model in modeling? I'm sure there's like a lot of models watching this podcast, or just like young people. The minute you start making, you know, we've been so fortunate. As the minute you start making a lot of money, what's like a good financial advice you think?
I mean, I feel like one, it's like knowing that it's not infinite. I mean, I think I was lucky that I'm in Holland, like people are very frugal. So like even when I was making a lot of money, like I was not living up to what I was making. Like I think, you know, like shopping a lot or like renting expensive apartments. I think you should really see modeling as like for a few years, and maybe you could be like, I think we've been modeling for like 15 years. It's like a very long time. Like, especially back then, you would see, you know, girls maybe do well for 4 years, 5 years, and then you kind of disappear. Now I think like, you know, the industry changed a bit where you can do it a little bit when you were older, but it's harder to save. You know, I think rates are not where they were, like, unless you're like, you know, really do really well in the beginning. So I feel like saving your money well, and especially when you're young, like, don't just like keep it in cash, like, you know, put it in things like S&P 500, like, you know, make the money grow, because no matter what, like if you just keep it on a bank account, like it's just going to shrink over time. Buying real estate, I think that's like a safe, good investment. But like I was always very heavy on real estate because I feel like it was like something I feel safe with, where, you know, I think how I financially like, you know, set myself up is maybe not even like the best way. It's not like, you know, I think like I didn't use much mortgage like when I was very young, because I was like, okay, I can afford it, so like why? But now looking back, I'm like, okay, maybe, you know, you can, you know, get a little mortgage, you know, as long as it keeps growing. But I feel like with modeling, you're also like, maybe this is the last money I'll ever make. Like, you never know. I always kind of had that mentality of like, next year it can be gone. So I want to make sure, like, you know, I can sustain my lifestyle and my investments. But yeah, I feel like saving and like investing it smartly, and not buying too many like handbags and things like that. I feel like that's like probably the best advice.
Yeah, I ask you this question because I feel like you're one of the girls that I know that's very careful with money.
Yeah.
And now talking to you, I realize how actually you're so smart, which is great.
But I think it's also, it gets culturally too. Like, I feel like in Holland, it's also like there's this mentality of like, you don't want to be showing off, kind of like, why buy a nice car or what, you know, like it's much less materialistic. And I think my parents were always like pretty frugal. Like we never like had to worry about money, but it was also like we would never go out to dinner. So like I feel like I really got this like rooted in me from my parents. Like, okay, the first few years at least when I was in New York, I was very frugal. Now I'm less because I'm like, I think it's okay to spend a little, you know, like I think I got more used to it. Also like,
just live a little, Mirte.
Live a little, yeah, exactly. Like I think now it's a different story, but like, and back, like I made way more money when I was 18 than I do now, actually, even though I have three, like back then it was very easy to, you know, you had these big jobs and, so it was easier to save. And, you know, if you made money 15 years ago and that keeps growing, like, you know, it's yeah.
Yeah, but you've been smart. You purchased how many investment properties you have?
I just bought a third. So I have one in Brooklyn, one in Miami, and then I just bought a house upstate.
Really?
Yeah, in New
Mirte,
York.
congrats.
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Where upstate?
It's near a town called Warwick.
Give us the address. No, I'm just-
It'll be for rent on Airbnb soon.
That's amazing. Do you have to do renovations?
Not that, but I'm planning to building a pool. Yeah, a pool and a paddle court. I'm obsessed with paddle. So that's going to be...
It's a hit right now.
Yeah. It's a beautiful house. So it's like, the area is like a little bit whatever, but it's kind of like my dream home. And it's like an hour and a half from New York. So I feel like it's also nice for like Kaden to have a place to go like outside of the city. It's like very farmland, a beautiful view. And I feel like it's nice to diversify. So I feel like that's maybe one other advice with investing, because I'm quite heavy in real estate. I think it's always good to diversify a bit, whether it's like, you know, you have a little bit in the market, like an S&P or something, you do some real estate, I have some Bitcoin, like, you know, like a little bit of everything. So it's like, if something goes bad, like at least the other one is like, you have some cash, but like, or T-bills, like things like I try to kind of diversify, but like percentage wise, I know I'm way too heavy in real estate because I always put like a lot of money into it and I don't love loans, which right now with interest rates, I think they're like 7 or 8%. So like, I don't feel comfortable with like too much loans. When they're low, you should probably go for it if you feel like you can at least sustain it. Right now, it's probably a little harder. But I think diversifying, it's like, it's a good way to just at least know you're going to be okay. And then if one thing goes bad, you can always, you know.
Yeah. Congrats on your third. I had no idea.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I bought it in September.
But you just said it's your dream house. Do you ever see living there full time eventually?
No, because it's so different than New York. It's a bit in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's an hour and a half drive. Like I feel like if I would move to the suburbs in New York, it would have to be like a 30-minute train ride or like something that's
more doable.
I mean, I wouldn't mind living, like, I used to live in Brooklyn. Like, I'm definitely, like, you know, like, city girl, I used to definitely be more on the low, you know, like, a little bit more on that side. But then now I've been in, like, Soho for, like, 8 years. And, like, so I really see it as, like, a second home. Go there, try to rent it out as much as you want. I need to rent it out because it's expensive to maintain.
Yeah.
But... no, I think I'm very happy with it. It was
Keeps you busy. That's amazing. Congrats, Mirte. That's big.
Thank you.
And I wanted you to share a little bit more about your Little Bean app. So like for moms to be, right?
Yeah.
It's basically an app that you can scan a product and see the ingredients. And does it show you like the level, like let's say like is it
so it's pretty easy. It's like either when you're shopping online, you can like upload a picture or you could just take a picture of the ingredient list. And most ingredient lists are written in English, so it kind of works on every product. And then it basically highlights like, we kind of categorize it on 3 levels of risk, like low, medium, high risk ingredients, and it will like flag them. And then you can basically there's like another page, and you can like read the research during pregnancy with the specific ingredients. Pregnancy is it's a bit of a gray area, because like research on pregnant women is often like they're often excluded from studies. So it's like there's some, and then there's also like animal research and things like that. But it's like it's a lot of, that's why we don't really like to say like don't use this, don't do use that. Like we kind of just say like, hey, this is the research that's on this ingredient, and you can decide if you want to use it or not. There's a few that like you kind of really don't want to use, like retinol. But it really depends on your own comfort level. It's like, some are like hormone altering, like paraben or phthalates, like, they change the way your hormones regulate, which is important during pregnancy. So it's like, I think it really depends on like your own comfort level. Like some women, they have a glass of wine during the pregnancy and like their kids grow up fine. Like, I think it really, like I was very strict my first pregnancy. Maybe with the second one, I'll use some low risk ingredients. Like, I don't know. I think like skincare for me is something that like, I have a pretty easy skin, so I can just switch my products. It's not like a hard thing to do. That like, it was kind of easy for me to just like, I'll follow I wouldn't use any low, medium, high risk. But yeah, and then we have like an OB-GYN that like medically reviews the ingredients. So like, it was really like, I just kind of made it out of my own necessity, that I was just getting stressed. That I was not stressed, but I was like, oh, how do I figure out? Because I have so many beauty products. We also get sent a lot of products. And I'm not that specific about what I use. So yeah, that's kind of how I developed it. I found developers back then in Bulgaria, and now I just switched to Ukrainian ones last year to redo it. I feel like it's also like a trial and error phase, where it's like things that are obvious to me, they're not always obvious to users. So it took a few like iterations before I'm like, okay, now it's in a good space. So it probably took like at least 2 years before I feel like the app was like good enough. And then now we're going more into like, trying to get the word out and writing blogs. I write a lot of blogs on like pregnancy safe skincare.
I gotta read some. Let me ask you, throughout this process, developing app, being pregnant, what did you learn through? Was there any product that you've been using all your life and suddenly you're like, oh my God, I can't use this anymore? Or was
Not
there
really.
Anything? No.
I feel like now, but I didn't start using retinol until after Kaden. Like my derm prescribed it to me. She was like, if you want to, for anti-aging, it's like, so I feel like that's one product that I probably, and I'm still getting used to it. I feel like my skin gets a little flaky sometimes. So I'm like, but I feel like that is probably like a good product to use for anti-aging, that if I would get pregnant again, I probably should stop it.
Got it.
I would say that's now. I didn't start using it until 2 years ago. I feel like now I'm like the wrinkles start to come a little bit. I'm like,
no, you look so good, Mirte. It's not true.
I'm like, I'm trying. I'm like with my red light mask. I'm like,
oh, you do that?
I try if I remember. It's just kind of boring.
Yeah. Just sit there.
Do you do anything for anti-aging, like treatments, or I don't know? What's your secret?
Actually, she was on our podcast. Her name is Jessie, and her line is called Golden Secrets.
Golden Secret, okay.
And she makes them right here in Topanga. And she gave us some products to try. And she has this serum, like a oil, face oil. It's so amazing. And, before that, I was kind of skeptical with oils, because I feel like oils can like make your skin break out. Yeah. But the weather in California is so dry. That this oil, it actually kind of like balances my skin, because I have extra dry skin. So it really works. And like all her products are super natural, and like she's this like beautiful goddess. I'll show you her. So now I'm just like keep on buying her stuff. It's really good. And then for cleansing, I use Is Clinical products. I like their serums as well. And actually, me and Brian, we are working on something as well. Okay. Skincare related.
Ooh, exciting.
So like it's nice to do your own.
Yeah, I feel like nowadays, like things advance so fast, where it's like I didn't see a red light mask like 2 years ago, and then there's like the microcurrent. Like I feel like there's so much stuff coming up that I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like what's, you know, like what really works and what's not. I'm like, I'm not sure yet. So I kind of try it all.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm like a little scared of like fillers and things like that. I'm like, I don't think I'm there yet.
Me neither. I haven't tried any.
Yeah, like
no
maybe
Botox,
one day,
nothing.
but so yeah, I feel like, so that's the one I would say ingredient, retinol, that like, because I care about anti-aging, that like if I would get pregnant again, I would definitely avoid. And like things like because some products, like I'm not particular about my body wash or body cream, like I can just use it pregnancy safe, like you know, I can use one without paraben, without all these things, because like I just need to moisturize my skin. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like I think it's harder when you have very like acne prone skin and you want to use like high concentrations of like salicylic acid or like benzoyl peroxide, you know, like things like that, where it's like a little bit is fine during pregnancy, but if you're gonna use that all over your body or face, if you have like that's more of an issue. But I don't really have that, so I feel like there's not that many products that I would just like, you know, I would just swap out. But I have kind of easy skin, and I feel like that's probably genetic. Like some women have good skin. I mean, I wash my face, like I take care of it. I don't, you know, I wear like cream and serum, and I feel like since I was like 14, I've been, you know, putting cream on my face. But like, I feel like hair and skin, it's like, it's a bit genetic, where it's like, yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
For sure. And you have such good skin.
thank you. Thank you.
And that's amazing to create that app throughout.
It was very fun.
Yeah.
It's very fun. And I feel like the nicest feeling now is like when someone's like reaching out, it's like, oh, I love using your, like, it feels nice. I'm like, oh, it's like helping, like, you know, because I feel like there is such a thing of like, when you're pregnant, you kind of worry, like, I feel like maybe it was more like my first 3 months where I was just kind of worried, like, ooh, like, you know, already the first 2 weeks when I didn't realize I was pregnant, I was still drinking, you know, and like, you kind of get worried, like, oh, is everything gonna be, and they'll be fine. But like, I think it's nice to just have a little extra comfort where it's like, okay, at least like this is saying it's like, okay, so I'm fine on that front.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's incredible to have. I had one more question about that, but I forgot. Because I was just like thinking that's such a great concept, and what pregnancy actually brought into your life.
Yeah,
right?
and
like
it didn't
unexpected.
exist. So I think that's kind of like, it's so niche. So like, I don't think it's ever gonna, I don't think it's ever like $1 billion business. I don't. Like, I think it's like, it's such a niche product. And I feel like as long as we make sure it like works well, it's, you know, medically reviewed and things like that, people find use of it, I think I'm kind of happy with that. I feel like when I was in Colombia, I had such a like, okay, maybe I still want to be super successful and get this big job and like 9 to 5 and like, and then now I'm kind of like just happy with, you know, like if this does well and my real estate does okay and like I make okay, like, and you know, I guess spend time with Kaden, like I'm pretty happy. I feel like that's like my happy spot, where
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't really care that much about like the prestige, or you know, some like my partner has like he cares about, you know, like making it a little bit, and I'm kind of like, well, in modeling I kind of made it. I feel like for modeling, but like you too, it's like, you know, I probably did better than I thought I would, and like, yeah, I think, you know, as long as I do a little bit of everything, I feel like it's...
You're definitely Dutch at heart.
I am Dutch at heart, yeah. Like, because I think it's a bit more American, where it's like, you want to make, you know, like people care about, like maybe the famous factor, which is like, in some way, I'm like very happy that I modeled back when we modeled, because it's like, you go to your job, you go home, that's it. And now it's like with social media, you know, to be a successful model, majority of times you have to like show yourself to like the world, kind of like, it's like you don't just go home. It's like, okay, you know, we used to just like go to a job, you get your makeup done, you do your pictures, but now it's also like, okay, but you want to show yourself to your followers, and like that's something I've never really leaned into. And like being famous is like something that would scare me, I think, in some way. It's like having people recognize you, like, yeah, it doesn't sound that fun.
It definitely happened to me at one point when I did YSL Beauty and the red lipstick. And I remember I was in France and walking, and there were
because you were everywhere.
Yeah, I was everywhere on every poster. And there were these bunch of girls start running after me on the street. And I'll never forget, I had that feeling in me and I was like, okay, I know why they're running after. Like, I know what's happening, but it made me feel so uncomfortable with myself in my own skin. I was like, I don't know if I can, like, you know, that's why I kind of like modeling better than acting. I think acting is that's like on steroids. Like,
I would never.
And modeling, it's like you can still be kind of like quiet, you know.
Yeah.
But when I start being recognized on the street that one time, I kind of was taken back.
Yeah.
So I'm like you in the same way. Like something about like being at that famous, you know, it scared me.
Oh yeah, like, I would never like. I feel like when you're a kid, you watch movies, you're kind of like admiring actors. You're like, oh, it'd be fun to be an act. And then, like, once I started modeling, I'm like, I would never want to be an actress. And like, I think a lot of models do want to be like, you know, I think it's one of these jobs that like a lot of models want to go into. I'd be like, I would never want to be an actor. Also, 1 year away from your family, like you're always, you know, for months at a time. Modeling, at least, like you still come back to the same place. So it's like you have one base and you travel and you come back. So it's like, it's still doable. But like acting and being famous, like I do not admiring. And like we see famous people around, like it just doesn't look fun to like, you know, always have someone, you know, come up to you, want a selfie, like, you know, going to restaurants. Like I love just like living my own life and like.
It's a lot. I think famous comes with a lot of baggage. Like you have to be so comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how those people do sometimes. I'm like, wow. What do you think about how fashion industry has changed over the years? Like you mentioned when you started modeling, you were having a map, right?
Oh yeah.
Now we have like the phones. It's like so easy.
Yeah, I feel like there's like nostalgia, even though it was only like, what, 15 years ago? Oh yeah, it's so different. I mean, in a way, I mean, of course, there's like the digital change, right? There's social media, and then there's the whole Me Too stuff, right? So it's like, you know, the stuff like even, you know, the Prada thing or what I told you, like stuff like that won't happen today anymore, right? Like I feel like things like, you know, girls walking in a G-string in a room, like I didn't really think anything. I don't think there was anything like wrong with it, but like something like that would like look very frowned upon it. And I think there was some casting directors back when we were working that like kind of got canceled because there was this thing of like, okay, you go to a casting, they take your book, they go for lunch, you just sit there for 3 hours, wait for no reason. You know, there's like, I would say the treatment of models was maybe not the best, like when we started. But I also felt like, you know, you work hard, it pays off. So I didn't bother me that much that I'm like, okay, well, they are paying me this much and they're doing this for my career. So like, you know, there's also people working 90 hours in finance and like making the same money. So like, I never looked like I don't think I saw it as like a bad experience. It's just like, it was what it was. I think now it's much more censored, if that's the right word. It's just like, I think people are much more gentle, you know, like, you know,
more careful.
Like, I feel like, you know, when now it's like a friend of mine would be like, oh, my agency asked me to come and take measurements. I just tell them I'm not comfortable to do that. And they can't say anything, you know, it's like.
I love that. Yeah. We were going like this. Remember
like,
those days? Come measurements.
And I was just like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And I'm like, yeah. Like,
you're like, yeah, go girl.
Yeah, you go.
Where was I earlier?
Can you imagine you saying that 10 years ago?
No.
No.
They were like, okay, go home.
Okay, go home.
No, yeah, that's true. It's totally different.
You know, it's a different world. So
and like the changing room situation now, like when I go for jobs, I'm like, wow, like I have my own space to change.
Yeah.
Like back then, you just like literally, you could be in the middle of the street changing in front of everybody.
And it would
like
be
no
like,
one cared.
Please,
like,
photographers, go away.
Yeah.
You know, but I feel like there was part of this like, I don't look bad at, like, because I feel like I had a good experience with modeling that like
Same, yeah.
I'm thankful to it so much. Like I wouldn't be able to buy an apartment and things like that. So like because of modeling, that was like, that's why I'm here. That's why I was able to go to Columbia. Like that's an expensive school. And like also getting in there, like if they like the like odd stories, like Columbia, there's like a way to get in where it's like, if you have like if you left school for a few years, you have an interesting story. They like because they like actors and models, and they like ballerinas. So like I would have never gone to Columbia. I would have never bought real estate. So like I'm very thankful for modeling. But it definitely changed. And like, today's like, I don't know how it is when you start new. From what I understand, it's like, back when we started, you did shows for like quite a while, like 8 seasons. Like, I think I did it for like, 8 seasons. So like 4 years, I did every, you do all the cities. I would do like 50 to 60 shows per season. And now I think it's, at least from what I hear from my agents, because I don't really know how it works, but it's like girls maybe will do like a few. If they do like 3 good shows, that's a good season. And like in 2 seasons, it's someone else. So like, I think the change is so much quicker. I think it's harder for a girl to really build a career like from shows and campaigns. They kind of need this like Instagram or something, or famous parents, or like I think there's this whole world of like, back when we started, it was really just like models, and they were kind of like admired for like the way they look. And then now it's more transition into like influencer, or like what else they can bring. Brands, they're probably more keen on having someone that like, is attached to something, like post on her end. So like they get, so it's a different ball game, and not to say that it's bad. I feel like it's just different, like back when we started, there wasn't, the Kendall and like that, those kind of,
it was way different. We didn't have stylists who's stylists just to go on the street, right?
Yeah.
It was just like, you are how you are. And
you are. It's just a model. And like, so I'm happy I experienced that, because I would be a terrible model today. Like Instagram and all of that.
I think all of us are kind of like, when I look at our generation, I'm like, well, all of us, like it's just different times.
Different times, yeah. And you didn't have to try, like back then it was like, I remember backstage, it would be like the backstage pictures, and we were always like, oh, another picture. It was like kind of like this. Versus now it's like girls are like, like you have to lean into that. So
true.
I'm just happy that I experienced that. And like, I think also nowadays it's, there was this whole movement of like inclusivity, maybe different sizes, so like, I think now you see is too, it's like kind of a bigger variety of models, where, before it was very much like, at least when I started, it was like everyone was blonde, skinny, and like
all kind of made of same cloth.
Yeah, there was maybe like a little bit diversity, but not much. And now it's a bit more inclusive. I think it's also more, you can model till a later age. I'm still modeling now, which I'm like, honestly, when I was like in my 20s, I thought like, oh, after 30 is probably like kind of done.
Yeah.
And now I think they actually want to book like, the 30 something, like I think you have a longer lifespan. Maybe you'll work less, but I think you can still, model here and there, which I think is nice. And which I'm planning to, like, I feel like it's easy work. It's kind of a nice change of scenery. So
for sure. And now, like after having a baby, I think of work as a vacation.
Oh yeah. It's like the fact that you don't have to like think about like it's kind of nice.
You're like, I have empty hands. Like I'm not holding anyone. I'm not cleaning anything.
Yeah, it's like modeling is kind of nice. Like I wouldn't say like I love modeling. Like it's not like I love being in front of the camera. Like I feel like some girls love being in front of the camera. I don't love it, but it's like it's easy. It's like it's an easy job.
You take it as a job.
Yeah.
So you prefer a runway or being in front of the camera?
I prefer runway.
Runway.
Yeah. You?
Depends. Really depends. I mean, I kind of both equally, I feel like. But if I would have to choose, I think I would go for like a beauty shoot. I really like beauty shoots. Yeah. Because it seems more peaceful and just like
Yeah, it's
all about your
chill.
face expression, and then you try different. I don't know. It's something beautiful about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I prefer Runway. Like and I haven't really done it much in a long like I mean my last like show season was like probably like 10 years ago when I was
But
really
you still
doing
do here and there, no?
I did like Madrid Fashion Week like 2 months ago.
You did?
Yeah.
No way.
Which
How was that?
It was very fun.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like I enjoyed it. So because you kind of just like you get booked before and you go there and then it's kind of it's like it's very easy. It's in one space. You do like 3 shows a day. It's fun. I was like, I kind of miss doing shows.
Did you see any of our girls?
No.
No?
No. I think it's mostly local and they fly in some girls from like Europe.
So nice.
Yeah,
I love that.
You should consider it. It was kind of fun because I think sometimes they like to bring back girls from like back in the days. And it was just like, it was fun and it was easy because like back when we were doing shows, like I remember like there was always a moment in Paris that I was crying. It was like, you know, when they call you again, they were like, okay, you got to go to this fitting at 2 a.m. And like, you just like, I feel like there was always like these, at the end, like 3 nights where you would sleep like 2-3 hours and I would be exhausted and they would always yell at you, like, where are you? Like, they're not like chill in Paris. So I feel like that was like hard work. And this was like, you would still do like 4 shows a day, but you're just in one space. They're like, okay.
No drama.
Yeah, it was nice. I was like, ooh.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You think you'll go back?
If they want to have me, sure.
Yeah. Why not?
It's fun to walk a show, actually. Because it's quick. You just do hair and makeup and then you walk. And I'm like,
So cool. Well, fun. I love that for you.
Yeah.
So Mirte, what did you learn after having a Caden and becoming a mom? What did you learn about yourself, maybe?
I think like the biggest lesson from just like watching him grow up, I think it's just like being happy about like little things. Like I feel like nowadays it's like life is like pretty complicated and we tend to like complain about, you know, things that don't really matter. And I think just like seeing him being like so happy about the little things is like, it makes me like, I should just generally be more happy about, you know, everything in life where, you know, I think when you're younger, you really like, there's no filter, right? They don't know any. So it's so pure. That it's just like, enjoy life, you know, like be happy with things around you and just
so
like
beautiful.
appreciate things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mirte. That has been such a great morning together. You're so inspiring. I think you're going to be so inspiring to so many who are listening to the podcast. Thank you for being here and best of luck with everything.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.